Overcoming the Fear of Speaking English. Please subscribe to our channel. Have you ever found yourself frozen and trying to speak English? You understand movies, songs, and books, and even when someone speaks to you, you can follow along, but when it is your turn to respond, your mind suddenly goes blank. You know the words, but they refuse to come out. You hesitate, struggle to form sentences, and sometimes avoid speaking altogether because you fear making mistakes. If this sounds familiar, you are not alone. Many English learners face this challenge, and it can be frustrating to know what you want to say but feel unable to express it fluently. The fear of speaking English is common, but it is not permanent. Like any skill, speaking improves with practice. However, the first step is to change how you think about speaking. Many learners believe they must speak perfectly from the start, which creates pressure and leads to fear. But fluency is not about perfection. It is about communication. The goal is to be understood, not to be flawless. To understand this better, let us look at the story of David, a young man who moved to a city where English was the main language in school. David had studied English for years. He knew grammar rules, could read complex texts, and even wrote essays with ease. But when it came to speaking, he felt lost. Whenever he tried to have a conversation, he hesitated, his thoughts raced, and he felt nervous about choosing the right words. His biggest fear was that people would laugh at him or think he was not intelligent because of his mistakes. At work, David's struggle became even more obvious. He was a skilled professional, but he found it difficult to contribute in meetings. He wanted to share his ideas, but the fear of speaking incorrectly held him back. He worried that his pronunciation was not good enough, that his sentences were awkward, or that his coworkers would not understand him. As a result, he often stayed silent, missing opportunities to connect with his colleagues and show his expertise. Over time, David began to feel isolated. He saw his coworkers forming friendships, networking, and advancing in their careers, while he remained in the background. He realized that his fear of speaking English was holding him back from fully experiencing life in his new environment. He knew he had to find a way to overcome it. How David conquered his fear of speaking. Determined to change, David started with a simple but powerful technique, talking to himself in English. He knew that speaking required practice, so he began narrating his daily activities in English. While making breakfast, he would say, "Now I am frying eggs. I will add some salt and pepper." When walking to work, he would describe what he saw. "The sky is cloudy today. People are rushing to catch their buses." At first, this felt strange, but over time, it helped him build confidence. Speaking English became more natural because he was using it every day, even if he was just talking to himself. This also trained his brain to think in English instead of translating from his native language, which made speaking faster and more fluid. However, David knew that speaking to himself was not enough. He needed real conversations. He decided to take a bold step and join a local English conversation group. The first time he attended, he barely spoke. He was nervous and afraid of making mistakes, but as he observed the group, he noticed something surprising. Everyone there was learning. Some spoke fluently, while others struggled just like him. But no one laughed at mistakes. Instead, they encouraged each other. Seeing this supportive environment gave David the confidence to start speaking. At first, he used short sentences. I like football. I watched a movie yesterday. But as he continued attending, he challenged himself to say more. He would describe his weekend, ask questions, and even join discussions. Whenever he made a mistake, the group members corrected him kindly, and he learned without feeling embarrassed. In addition to speaking practice, David started listening to English daily. He played English podcasts while commuting and watched English videos with subtitles. But instead of just listening, he actively practiced a technique called shadowing. Shadowing is when you listen to a speaker and repeat what they say immediately, copying their pronunciation, tone, and rhythm. David would pause the podcast, repeat the sentences, and try to match the speaker's voice as closely as possible. This helped him sound more natural and improved his pronunciation. Over time, he noticed that his sentences flowed more smoothly, and his confidence grew. Despite his progress, David still faced moments of doubt. Sometimes he forgot words or struggled to complete sentences. There were days when he felt discouraged, thinking he would never be as fluent as native speakers. But instead of giving up, he reminded himself of an important lesson. Mistakes are part of learning. Whenever he made an error, he viewed it as a stepping stone rather than a failure. Instead of avoiding conversations, he saw each interaction as practice. Every time I speak, he told himself, I am improving. I am learning something new. This mindset shift changed everything, the transformation. Months later, David noticed a huge difference in himself. He no longer hesitated as much when speaking. At work, he began participating in discussions and confidently sharing his ideas. His coworkers noticed his progress and started including him in more conversations. He even made new friends because he was no longer afraid to join in and express himself. His journey was not about becoming perfect, it was about becoming confident. And confidence came from consistent practice and a willingness to embrace mistakes as part of the learning process. What you can learn from David's story. If you struggle with speaking English, remember that fluency is a journey, not a destination. Here are some key lessons from David's experience that can help you. 1. Start small. Do not wait for the perfect moment. Begin with simple sentences and gradually build up. Talking to yourself in English is a great way to start. 2. Think in English. Avoid translating from your native language. Train your brain to think in English by describing your surroundings and daily activities. 3. Practice speaking regularly. Join English conversation groups. Talk to language partners, or even practice with friends who are also learning. 4. Use shadowing techniques. Listen to native speakers, repeat after them, and try to match their pronunciation and tone. This will improve your fluency and confidence. 5. Embrace mistakes. Mistakes are proof that you are learning. Do not let fear stop you from speaking. The more you practice, the better you will get. 6. Stay consistent. Fluency does not happen overnight. Keep practicing every day, and over time, you will see improvement. A message to keep you going. Imagine yourself a few months from now speaking English with ease and confidence. Imagine having conversations without hesitation, expressing your thoughts clearly, and enjoying the process of learning. That future is possible if you take the right steps today. Do not let fear hold you back. Every great speaker was once a beginner. The key is to start. Keep going and believe that with time and effort, you will improve. You have the ability to speak English fluently one step at a time. Learning a language is like building a house. Each word you learn is a brick. Each sentence you practice is a wall. And with time, you create a strong foundation. Some days may feel challenging, but remember, every effort you make brings you closer to your goal. So, do not be discouraged by mistakes. Instead, see them as stepping stones toward mastery. Keep practicing, keep listening, and keep speaking. The journey may take time, but the rewards are worth it. Stay committed, and soon you will see just how much you have grown. Sophia had always loved reading books and listening to English podcasts. But when it came to speaking, she often felt uneasy. The thought of speaking in English made her nervous, especially when she had to converse with others in real-life situations. Whenever she had to say something in English, she would freeze up, her mind would go blank, and she couldn't find the right words. She was worried that her accent wasn't good enough and that others would judge her for making mistakes. Sophia was determined to improve her speaking skills, but the idea of speaking in front of others felt overwhelming. One day, after another frustrating attempt to speak English in a group, Sophia decided to take matters into her own hands. She realized that in order to become fluent, she needed to change her approach and face her fear of making mistakes. She started by watching her favorite English language TV shows and paying close attention to the characters' dialogues. Sophia would pause the shows and repeat the lines out loud, imitating the pronunciation, rhythm, and tone of the actors. At first, it felt awkward, but as she continued practicing, it became easier. She began to notice that her pronunciation was improving, and her vocabulary was growing as well. Sophia didn't stop there. She turned her TV watching practice into a routine. Each time she watched a show, she would pause and try to mimic the dialogues. She even acted out the scenes, speaking along with the characters. It wasn't long before she started feeling more comfortable speaking out loud. Even when no one was around, she would talk to herself in English, repeat sentences from the shows, and incorporate those sentences into her daily conversations with friends and family. But, of course, this journey wasn't without its challenges. There were days when she felt discouraged because she couldn't remember the words or made mistakes while speaking. She would stumble over a sentence or forget a word altogether. However, Sophia reminded herself that mistakes are part of the learning process. Each mistake was a lesson. Every time she mispronounced a word or made an error, she was learning how to improve. Slowly but surely, Sophia began to gain confidence. Speaking in English became less stressful. She learned that it was okay to make mistakes. It was all part of the process. Gradually, her fear of speaking in front of others faded, and she began to express herself more freely. Her speech became smoother, and she was able to engage in conversations with less hesitation. The key to her success was practice, persistence, and the willingness to accept mistakes as part of her growth over time. Sophia realized that fluency doesn't happen overnight. It's a gradual process that requires dedication. Each day, she would practice speaking English, and with each passing day, her confidence grew. By consistently practicing and embracing the learning process, she achieved fluency in a way that felt natural to her. Now, let me share another inspiring story about a man named Daniel. Daniel had always been an ambitious person. He had a successful career in marketing, and when an opportunity arose to move to an English-speaking country for work, he seized it without hesitation. He knew that the new job would help him grow professionally, and he was eager to take on the challenge. However, despite being highly skilled at his job, Daniel faced a major obstacle: his English-speaking skills. At first, Daniel was confident in his ability to read and write in English. He was comfortable with emails, reports, and even presentations. But when it came to speaking, he found himself struggling. In meetings, he understood everything that was being discussed, but when it was his turn to speak, he often felt nervous and blanked out. His words felt stuck, and he couldn't express his thoughts as clearly as he wanted. He worried that his colleagues would think he wasn't as smart or capable. Because of his difficulty speaking, his lack of fluency began to affect his self-confidence and made it harder for him to connect with others. Determined to overcome this challenge, Daniel decided to take action. He reached out to a native English speaker who wanted to learn his language, and the two began meeting regularly for language exchange. At first, Daniel was apprehensive, but soon he realized how beneficial this practice was. It allowed him to have conversations in a relaxed setting without the pressure of perfection. He found that as he practiced, his vocabulary expanded and his pronunciation improved. Daniel was also helping his language partner learn, which made him feel good and gave him extra motivation to keep going. In addition to the language exchange, Daniel enrolled in an online course designed to improve speaking skills for professionals. The course had various exercises that focused on different aspects of communication, such as participating in meetings, making presentations, and even engaging in casual conversations. Each lesson included feedback from teachers who provided personalized advice and suggestions for improvement. This feedback was incredibly valuable, as it allowed Daniel to identify his weaknesses and focus on specific areas where he needed to improve. He learned how to articulate his ideas more clearly, use appropriate vocabulary, and reduce hesitations while speaking. Daniel also made a commitment to practice speaking every day. Whether he was talking to himself in the mirror, recording his voice to listen back, or practicing with his colleagues during lunch breaks, he dedicated time each day to improving his speaking skills. At first, Daniel felt a little awkward, but as time went on, he became more comfortable. His colleagues were supportive, and they even helped him with difficult words and phrases. They appreciated his efforts to improve his English, and that encouragement motivated him to keep pushing forward. Over the next few months, Daniel's speaking skills improved dramatically. He became much more confident in meetings, and his ability to express his ideas clearly grew stronger. His colleagues noticed the difference and praised him for his efforts. This recognition gave Daniel a sense of accomplishment and fueled his desire to continue practicing. As he became more fluent, he no longer felt anxious when speaking in front of others. He could engage in conversations with ease and communicate his thoughts effectively. The transformation Daniel experienced was a result of his dedication, practice, and willingness to step out of his comfort zone. By taking small steps every day and embracing mistakes as part of the learning process, he achieved the fluency he had longed for. Daniel's story shows that with determination and insistent effort, anyone can improve their speaking skills, no matter how challenging it may seem at first. Trust the process, embrace patience, and continue your growth. Learning a new language can be a deeply rewarding journey, but it is important to remember that growth doesn't happen instantly. The path to fluency is not always smooth, and it requires both patience and persistence. As you continue your language learning journey, you may sometimes feel like you're not making progress as quickly as you hoped. But rest assured, this is a natural part of the process. Learning a language is much like planting a tree. You can't expect it to bear fruit overnight. But with time, attention, and care, it will eventually blossom. At the beginning, it's easy to become discouraged when you feel stuck. You might learn a lot of vocabulary or grammar, but when it comes to speaking or understanding conversations, it may still feel like you're not quite there. It's essential to remember that fluency comes with consistent effort over time. Each day of practice, no matter how small, is an investment in your future self. You may not always notice big changes, but they are happening little by little, like the process of slowly sculpting a statue from a rough block of stone. Every moment of practice chisels away at the roughness, gradually revealing the smoothness and precision of fluency. This is where patience becomes a key factor. It's easy to lose motivation if you don't see instant results, but learning a language is a marathon, not a sprint. Over time, your skills will start to come together in ways that might surprise you. The key is to remain consistent, even on the days when you feel like you're not improving. You might not notice it day to day, but looking back over a few weeks or months, you'll see a significant difference in how you speak and understand. One of the most important aspects of language learning is to trust that the progress will come. While it's tempting to compare your progress with others, remember that each person's journey is different. Some may learn faster, others may take a bit more time, but the essential point is that you're on your own path, and your effort will pay off in the end. The process is different for everyone, but the key to success is remaining committed to the work, no matter how slow it may seem at times. To illustrate this point, think of learning to ride a bike. At first, you might feel clumsy, and you might fall or lose your balance. But each time you get back up, you're making progress even if it doesn't seem like it in the moment. Eventually, you'll be able to ride smoothly, and those initial struggles will feel like distant memories. The same goes for language learning. The more you practice, the easier it becomes, and one day you'll find yourself speaking more naturally without thinking too much about it. One key thing to keep in mind is that it's okay to make mistakes. Many learners feel discouraged when they don't say things perfectly, but mistakes are an essential part of the learning process. Every time you make an error, you're learning and improving. Instead of focusing on the mistake itself, shift your focus to what you can learn from it. Embrace mistakes as opportunities to refine your understanding and improve your skills. Over time, you'll find that these mistakes become less frequent, and you'll develop a deeper understanding of how to express yourself clearly. For example, imagine you're having a conversation in English, and you mispronounce a word. Instead of feeling embarrassed, take a moment to note how it sounded and think about how you can improve the pronunciation next time. By seeing mistakes as learning moments, you allow yourself to grow more comfortably in your language journey. A vital part of staying motivated is recognizing that small, daily steps make a big difference in the long run. Practice doesn't have to be lengthy or exhaustive. Even spending a few minutes each day working on your vocabulary, speaking, or listening comprehension can create remarkable results over time, just like building muscle at the gym. Consistency in practice will lead to noticeable improvements, even if you don't feel stronger right away. Also, remember that progress doesn't always mean perfection. You don't need to speak without making any mistakes to be considered fluent. Fluency means that you're able to communicate effectively, and this comes with the ability to express yourself clearly. Even if you make a few mistakes along the way, fluency is about confidence, not perfection. The more you practice, the more your communication skills will improve, and the more confident you'll feel in expressing yourself. Think of it this way. Learning a language is like assembling a puzzle. At first, you might only see a few pieces, and it might feel confusing, but as you keep putting the pieces together, the bigger picture begins to form. The more you practice, the clearer and more connected everything becomes. The puzzle doesn't come together all at once, but with every piece you place, you're getting closer to a complete picture. Sometimes progress may feel slow, especially when you encounter new grammar rules or vocabulary that are challenging. When that happens, it's essential to take a step back and recognize that this is just a part of the process. The more you persist and engage with the language, the easier it will become. Acknowledge the small wins like understanding a new phrase or getting through a conversation without hesitation, and celebrate these milestones as they're evidence of your growth. Another important tip is to vary your practice. It's easy to fall into a routine where you focus on the same areas day after day, but diversifying your learning methods can help speed up your progress. For example, if you usually practice by reading, try listening to podcasts or watching videos in the language. If you normally write, try speaking more. Mixing things up keeps the process fresh and helps reinforce different aspects of the language. There are times when you might feel stuck, like you're not improving as fast as you want, but it's important to push through these moments. Progress might be slower at times, but that's when the real growth happens. During these challenging phases, it's crucial to remind yourself why you started in the first place and reconnect with the goals you set. Remain patient and trust that your consistent effort will bring you closer to achieving fluency. Lastly, take a moment to appreciate how far you've come. Reflect on how much more comfortable you are with speaking, understanding, and engaging in conversations. Recognizing your own progress, no matter how small it seems, can keep you motivated as you continue moving forward on this exciting journey of language learning.